In this video, I'll talk about strings. Strings are a variable type that can store a string of letters. And the way you define that is you could just put whatever you want to be in the variable inside either quotes or apostrophes, which you can think of as a single quote. Either of them work. And that's nice to have two different options because let's say you want to have a quote inside your string. So here we'll use the single quote so Python doesn't see this and think that, well, that means it must be the end of the string. Well, it's looking for the second apostrophe. So everything inside here is now part of the string. And if you can't avoid it and you need to have a quote sign inside of something that's delimited by quotes, then you can put a slash in front of that quote. And this slash will not be stored. It just tells Python to not consider this the end of the string, just consider that as one of the characters in the string. So this would print the name, and it will not print the slashes. So you can do some basic things with strings. Like, for example, you can concatenate two strings, which means you put the first string and then the next string right after it. And you can do something. You can even multiply strings. This will take the first name and multiply it by 3, which means it'll repeat the first name 3 times. So print ada, ada, ada. Well, let's see what this looks like. Okay, so the first thing it prints is this shows that it printed the name, but the slashes are not part of it. It printed first name plus last name. Oh, it leaves no space. Of course, it just concatenates these two. So if I wanted to put a space in there, I'll add a space, and then let's run this again. Now this will take the first name plus a space plus a last name, and there's Ada Lovelace. Here's where it did Ada 3 times, and now we're talking about how strings are actually stored. In the computer, every letter is just converted to a number. So A is the number 65 in ASCII. And so if you want to see what character a particular number is, just use the CHR function. I stored it in a variable pound, and when we printed pound, we saw that the character 163 is actually the symbol for pounds sterling. If you want to go backwards, if you want to see what number it is, just type the letter you want to look up, and ORD will tell you that that's 65. And these smaller numbers, 65 and so forth, are what I'm calling ASCII, A-S-C-I-I. And here is a list. These are the first, one of the first encodings that were developed, and the most popular one in the long way back era of the early days of computers. So here's where you can see 65 right here is the letter A, capital A. And there's only 128, which is very limiting. So ASCII is still important to understand how that works. So the string dad is the number 100, 97, 100. And those strings, since they're only 128, that was a long time ago, have been superseded now by what's called Unicode. And Unicode has thousands and thousands of characters and can represent just about any script in existence. And so those numbers are bigger. If I put this code, that's a euro sign. You can even print an emoji or characters in other scripts. And you notice that this is 0x. This number has a 0, it starts with 0x. It means it's a hexadecimal number. A number has a letter in it. Yeah, hexadecimal. So some of the things you can do with strings, let's set the Monty Python's Flying Circus to be the variable s. And there's some functions that work with strings, like you want to find the length of Monty Python's Flying Circus. It'll count how many characters are in there. I'll run this. And if you want to take a number, this is a number for that last number that we saw, the hexadecimal character for the Chinese symbol for dragon. This will the str function will convert that to a string. So Monty Python's Flying Circus has 28 characters in it, including the spaces and the apostrophe. And when you convert that number to a string, this looks like it's a decimal, but it's actually a string. And these are some of the functions. There also is something called string methods. And a method is essentially a function that's kind of encapsulated inside of an object. So strings are objects, and they have certain things that they know how to do. Like this string can convert, you can figure out how to write the lowercase of the string. So this lowercase just wrote Monty Python's Flying Circus and took all the capital letters out. You can find things inside a string. So here we're going to find all the first instance of the letters O-N. So in Monty Python, that should appear, that's the 0th character. That should appear the first character, and there it is, the first character. The count, this will count the number of spaces, and there's 1, 2, 3 spaces, and that's what it found. I'll replace all the lowercase letters with or lowercase o with the 0. So the 1, 2, twice it should show up that there is a 0 there and a 0 there. Split, we'll split up the string into words, and it splits it based on where the spaces are, and it returns a list. We'll talk more about lists next chapter. And strip will get rid of any extra spaces on either side of a character, so this either side of a string, so it just removes all the white spaces. There are tons of different string methods, and you don't need to memorize all these. You can look them up as you need it. But if you want to do, if you think you want to do something with a string, there's probably a string method for it. So just look it up and figure out as you need it. The strings that I highlighted are the ones that I found I use the most often.